Hi, and welcome to The Regulated Mother. I'm your host, Afshan Tafler, nervous system resilience coach and mother of a hypersensitive high needs child. If you're raising a differently wired kid with PDA, autism, OCD, ADHD, or big emotional needs, this is a space for you. Here we talk about what most people don't, how it really feels, how your nervous system responds, and how to find your way back to calm, courage, and connection, even on the hardest days. This episode was created using an AI-generated discussion of one of my blog articles. I'm using this format to make my writing more accessible for those who prefer to listen rather than read. You'll find the link to the original article in the show notes. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something pretty universal, I think. Those really challenging, sometimes painful emotional patterns, the ones that just feel stuck on repeat.
Especially in our closest relationships, right? Like with parenting, things can get so intense.
Exactly. And we're exploring how understanding our own nervous system responses might be the key to navigating all that.
Yeah, and our guide for this is a fantastic blog piece by Afshan Tafler. It's called Becoming the Awareness Behind Your Activation.
That's the one. So our mission today is really to unpack Afshan's story, her insights. We want to figure out, what does she actually mean by activation?
And why is it so important to grasp that we are not defined by those moments of activation?
Right. And how can cultivating this thing called awareness really create, space?
Sure.
Space for healing ourselves and also space for better connection with others.
It's kind of a practical journey into self-understanding, really.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Afshan starts with this scenario.
Yeah.
Honestly, it sounds really tough and probably quite relatable for many parents.
Yeah, she talks about being caught in this difficult, repetitive loop with her son. She describes him as hypersensitive, high needs.
You can almost feel it. The son's deep in anxiety. He's pacing, needing constant check-ins like texting his dad or caregiver nonstop, just looping on these worries.
And the parent, Afshan in this case, is trying her best to be the calm anchor, holding steady for hours sometimes.
But that constant intensity that demands the emotional weight, it builds up in her system, too. Eventually, her nervous system just gets overloaded.
Yeah, the stress mounts.
And she describes that shift happening inside her, moving from being steady to feeling agitated herself, her own stress response kicking in.
And that's where the cycle gets really painful, because her reactivity, her agitation, it doesn't soothe her son. It often just activates him more.
So they spiral together.
Yeah.
She reacts, or maybe shuts down and gets more anxious, and they're stuck. She uses that phrase stuck over and over again.
It's that awful feeling of being trapped in a dynamic you can't seem to change. And the core issue she points to, it's about both their nervous systems essentially bracing for threat.
Stuck in reaction mode.
But then there's a turning point in her story. And it comes after she'd been actively working on becoming more aware of her own nervous system.
So this familiar pattern starts up again one day, the son's anxiety escalating, the tension rising in her.
But this time was different because of that awareness practice she'd been doing.
Okay, so what changed?
Instead of just being swept away by her own rising stress, she could actually stay present with it. She didn't get immediately hijacked.
And she started noticing things.
Yeah.
Physically.
Yeah, she details it. The rising tension, that pressure feeling in her chest, her jaw starting to tighten, all the usual signs.
But the crucial difference.
She became the watcher, the witness. She was observing these sensations and urges rather than just being them and reacting automatically.
That sounds like such a subtle shift, but maybe a really profound one.
It really was. And the outcome of just witnessing like that, she felt a sense of calm in that moment, a calm she hadn't experienced before during these specific stressful times with her son.
Wow. And what came with that calm?
She describes feeling space, like internal space, and choice. And she felt what she calls her essence starting to emerge.
Her essence. Okay. How did that feel different from, say, things she might have tried before?
Well, she contrasts it. Before, she might have tried to use distractions or act silly to shift the mood. But looking back, she realized those attempts often had this kind of hidden agenda.
Like trying to make him behave differently so she would feel better.
Exactly. Trying to manage the outcome. It felt a bit performative, she says, not truly coming from her core.
But this time, from that witnessing place.
There was, in her words, no grasping, no goal, just presence, just essence. It felt true, free.
And then something happened from that space.
Yeah, this is the lovely part of the story. Spontaneously, she just stood up, started shaking her bum, and danced around the room.
A light chuckle sound, implied, not written, That's brilliant. Just pure, silly energy.
Totally. Light, silly, pure, she calls it. And the effect on her son.
He must have been surprised.
He laughed. Apparently, the whole energy in the room just shifted. He softened, came back to himself out of that anxious spiral.
That's incredible. And she sees that as more than just a good parenting moment.
Much more. She calls it a nervous system breakthrough, a moment of real healing that started with her own internal shift.
Which brings us right to the absolute core message of her article.
Yes. The central truth she really landed on: you are not your activation.
Okay, let's really unpack that statement. What does it mean, practically speaking, day to day, to say, I am not my activation?
It means when that surge comes, fight, flight, freeze, collapse, that feeling like you need to lash out or run or just shut down completely, that response isn't the whole you.
So even when my mind is racing with worry or my body feels totally flooded with tension, that's not my identity.
That's the idea. Those are states, intense states, yes, but they are temporary experiences passing through your nervous system. They aren't the fundamental you.
So if I'm not that intense feeling or those racing thoughts, who or what am I then?
You are the one who can notice it all, the awareness that can witness the thoughts, the feelings, the bodily sensations.
Okay.
And Afshan argues that making this shift from identifying as the activated mind and body to identifying as the awareness observing them, she says that's at the very heart of nervous system healing.
She touches on different ways to frame this awareness, right?
Yeah.
She mentions her own perspective.
Yeah, she shares her personal belief about souls living in bodies with conditioned minds, but she's very clear that's just one lens. You don't have to adopt that belief.
The core point is universal, regardless of spiritual framework.
Exactly. The immense healing comes from realizing you can observe what's happening internally, the thoughts, the emotions, the physical states, rather than being completely swallowed by them. It's about connecting with that awareness behind it all.
And it's interesting how she notes that science is kind of catching up with this idea.
Right. Neuroscience is exploring concepts that really echo this. She brings up Dr. Dan Siegel's work.
On Mindsight.
Yeah, mindsight, basically, our capacity to perceive our own mind. And his wheel of awareness model is a great way to picture this.
How does the wheel model work? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. Imagine consciousness like the hub of a wheel. Pure awareness is at the center.
Okay.
And all the things we can be aware of, thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, even our connections to others, those are points on the rim, connected by spokes.
Right.
Now, usually, when we're stressed or activated, we get stuck out there on the rim, fixated on one point, like the anxiety point or the anger point. We lose perspective.
We get lost in the spoke, basically.
Exactly. Siegel's model suggests we can intentionally bring our focus back to the hub. From the hub, you can still acknowledge everything on the rim. You see the anxiety, feel the anger, but you're not fused with it. You're holding it from a place of presence at the center.
That's a really clear image.
Yeah.
It helps make it less abstract.
And the science she points to, studies on things like meditation, or how the brain's default mode network changes with practice, or embodied cognition. It all suggests this awareness isn't just fixed.
It's something we can cultivate, like strengthening a muscle.
Precisely. It reinforces the idea that you're not just subject to your brain's programming. You are the awareness that can witness that programming, hold it, and potentially even reshape it over time.
Which ties back perfectly to the nervous system itself, our wiring.
Yeah, she explains it so well. Our nervous system is fundamentally designed for survival. It learns from past experiences, especially threats. It wires in responses, adaptive responses, to help us cope.
So when something happens in the present, like our child's behavior, that unconsciously reminds our system of a past threat,
Boom. It can trigger those old familiar survival patterns: fight, flight, freeze, collapse. They come online automatically.
and here's her crucial point again.
These responses, even though they feel so real and powerful and they are wired in from the past, they are not who you are. They are learned patterns, survival mechanisms doing their job based on old data.
And just seeing them as patterns, that changes things. Instead of, I am so overwhelmed, it becomes, overwhelm is present right now. I feel that pattern.
Yes. That shift from identifying with the state to witnessing the state. And she calls that witnessing a ventral vagal act.
Okay, break that down. Ventral vagal.
It's from polyvagal theory. Basically, the ventral vagal part of our nervous system is associated with feeling safe, connected, social, present. The fight, flight, freeze responses belong to other parts, the more primitive survival circuits.
Got it.
So the simple act of bringing mindful awareness, that calm, observing presence to your automatic survival reaction actually starts to engage that ventral vagal system. It brings its regulating energy to the activated state.
So awareness itself is regulating.
In a way, yes. And Afshan says this awareness, this capacity to witness, that's you, the real you, beneath the temporary storm.
Which clarifies that difference between, like, being consumed by a reaction versus being with it.
Totally. When we're identified as the mind-body state, without that observer perspective, we get hijacked. We are the anger, so we lash out. We are the shutdown, so we withdraw. We are the anxiety, so we spiral.
We're taken over.
But if you can create even a tiny bit of space to be with it, oh, hello, anxiety. I feel you, tension. I notice that urge. You're already shifting the relationship.
You're holding it instead of being it.
Exactly. And that's where the healing happens, not by forcing the reactions away, but by meeting them with presence, with compassion, from that place of safety within awareness. That's when you experientially know you are not just your reactions.
And applying this to the heat of parenting, especially with a child who might be highly sensitive or reactive, that feels like where the rubber really meets the road.
Oh, absolutely. She's very candid about how incredibly hard that is. Because a child's big feelings or difficult behaviors can hit us right where we live, stirring up our own old stuff.
Old wounds, unmet needs, shame.
All of it. Their activation can hook right into ours. But if you can access that witnessing awareness, even for a second in those intense moments,
It creates that pause.
that crucial pause, a breath, a moment where choice becomes possible. It allows you to shift from just reacting at your child from your own triggered place.
To actually responding to and with them from somewhere more grounded.
Yes. And that feels like real co-regulation, doesn't it?
It does. It's not about being perfect or controlling the situation.
Not at all. It's about offering presence. Your regulated presence, born from your own awareness, becomes a powerful resource in the interaction. It's a gift.
And they connect to this idea of reciprocal healing. It goes both ways.
Right. When the parent can anchor into that aware, calmer, more grounded part of themselves, their true self, the child's nervous system can actually sense that different energy.
It gives the child system another option.
Exactly. Another state to potentially resonate with. Instead of just being stuck amplifying each other's chaos, the child system might be able to sort of tune in to the parent's calm, settle alongside it.
Because, and this is so important, the child isn't their activation either, right?
Precisely. Just like the parent isn't theirs. The child's behaviors, however challenging, are coming from a nervous system that feels under threat. It's not who they fundamentally are.
And when the parent can hold that understanding,
Wow. It changes everything. It brings clarity, compassion, curiosity. You start to see through the behavior to the struggling child underneath rather than just reacting to the surface level stuff.
you become, as she puts it, a mirror of regulation.
Yeah, reflecting back safety and presence, even when things are chaotic. And that helps the child start to build a different internal narrative about themselves, that they're not bad, not broken, not defined by their hardest moments.
It helps them believe in their own wholeness.
And that chips away at shame for both of them. Afshan talks about that shared relief being where the healing really takes root in the relationship.
So this whole journey of cultivating awareness, living from that place, it's ultimately about meeting your true self, with a capital S.
That's how she frames it. The self that's always there, underneath the survival wiring, the pain, the protective layers.
The part of you that's already calm, clear, connected.
Confident, creative, all those qualities. It's already there.
And maybe the intensity of parenting, especially with the child who really needs to be seen, is actually an invitation for the parent.
A profound invitation, yes, to meet their own authentic self, to shed the conditioned roles and step into who they really are beneath it all.
So the struggles, the exhaustion, the pain, it's not just meaningless suffering.
Not according to this perspective. It's framed as a sacred invitation to grow, to heal, to remember who you really are.
And that remembering starts with awareness.
Even if your history involves significant trauma, even if your nervous system feels deeply wired for survival, she offers this powerful reassurance. You are not broken.
You are the awareness of the broken feeling.
Yeah.
The awareness of the beliefs.
Yes. There's that powerful, wise, whole, resilient being inside you. And awareness is the path back to connecting with that self.
And that final line from her article is just beautiful.
Let your child guide you home, not just to them, but to you. Really lands it, doesn't it?
It really does. So, okay, let's bring this back to you, the listener. Let's just sit with this invitation from Afshan Tafler for a moment.
What if? What if you really considered the possibility that you are not your instant reactions, not that critical voice in your head, not the endless list of needs and shoulds, maybe not even entirely defined by the habits of your body and mind?
Could you, maybe in the next few days, set a small intention, just to practice becoming the watcher, the one who notices the thoughts and reactions moving through you?
Start really small. Like she suggests, notice that little impulse to grab a snack when stress hits, or that flash of irritation when something minor disrupts your plan.
Or even just the physical feelings, the tightness in your shoulders when you're running late, the heat rising when you feel challenged.
And the key instruction here is just notice. That's it. No need to fix it, change it, judge it.
Feel the pattern, the impulse, the sensation arise.
Yeah.
And then just bring your awareness to it. Become the observer.
And just see what happens. Maybe you'll find you're a little less swept away. Maybe a tiny bit of space opens up between the trigger and your usual response. Maybe the intensity softens, even just a degree.
And in that space, that quiet, watching presence you're nurturing, what might start to emerge?
Maybe a sense of quiet energy, a gentle strength, a feeling of who you are apart from the reaction, your essence, your true self starting to peek through.
And definitely be gentle with yourself. This takes practice, loads of it. And self-compassion is key. It won't always feel easy or immediate.
Just keep practicing that noticing, because as you get more familiar with that grounded, present, aware place within yourself,
Well,
remember that feeling.
because that is the self, the presence you can choose to bring into those challenging interactions with your kids, your partner, anyone.
And when you show up from that place, you give them the possibility, the invitation to connect with their true self too.
Think about that potential for connection, for healing, all starting with becoming the awareness behind your own activation.
Thanks so much for listening to The Regulated Mother. If this episode helped you feel a little more seen, grounded, or hopeful, I'd love for you to share it with another mom who might need it too. And if you want more nervous system tools and support, head to my website, illuminateyou.ca, to grab my free ebook and video series. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing brave and meaningful work.